Japanese-inspired mountain palace turned restaurant, a racy, risque burlesque business, and a crowded house that once created a chart-topping pop song that everybody knows. Must mean we're about to see Sycamore Avenue. In the center of Hollywood Heights is our three-point intersection of Camrose Drive there, which we saw, Hillcrest Road over here, which we toured from Patrick Swayze's house on the right all the way down to Kim Stanley's, and the third one, the lovely Sycamore Avenue, home to a few of the more modern houses of Hollywood Heights, like the one here with a fantastic rooftop deck built in 2017 that stole the title of youngest house from the three homes on the other side of Sycamore, all designed and built by architect Fran Offenhauser in 1980. She still runs a firm here in LA from her offices in West Hollywood, and her designs for this neighborhood, they were considered futuristic and edgy back then. Some people had concerns and weren't too sure, but I think 45 years later, they're just perfect here. And what I love about Fran is that she chose this neighborhood because she loved its rich history, and she actually took it all into account when building. Her team is actually pretty big on preservation, and she's worked on some pretty major LA landmarks as well as private residences. Seems like an architect who really puts thought into her creations, which I love. She designed each house to take advantage of the incredible views that this vantage point has to offer. And since all three houses share a common driveway, Fran strategically positioned each of them and their windows so that neither of them would be visible to either of the other two houses once you were home and inside of yours. Also, she gave each house a rooftop deck space, which I'm a huge fan of. And, giant hedges help with isolation and privacy. This house, it's got views of Hollywood Heights and downtown LA. Love a downtown skyline. Something that was pretty minimal when this house was built in 1933. Helen Eaton lived here for quite a while, watching the LA skyline change throughout the years from her hilltop here. And I'm sure she was quite grateful on Thanksgiving weekend, 1940. Earlier in the week, Helen was cruising down Ventura Boulevard in the Valley when she got a smidge too close to pedestrian Frida Caton. Helen's door handle, it whacked the 62-year-old Mrs. Caton, sending her right down on the concrete. She was treated for some cuts and bruises, and I'm sure she was extremely grateful herself that weekend. They were going better for Helen in 1967 when she used the Citizen newspaper to place an ad for rent here. Her 4,000 square foot house was now a duplex, and good news, the man who answered the ad, he showed up with the newspaper in hand, and he rented it on the spot, so Helen was able to call the newspaper and put a stop to the ad running another 3 days. She saved money, the renter had a new home, and the newspaper used the story as a selling point. It was a win-win for everyone. I'm sure you noticed that the intersection down there is named the Marilyn Glasband Circle. Well, she lived in this house that sits below this beautiful gate and garage built back in 1924, and for someone with a circle named for her, there just isn't a whole lot out there on her. According to the Hollywood Heights Instagram account, Marilyn was the president of the Hollywood Heights Association in the 90s. They praise her for having been a very active and devoted member of the community. So loved that Following her death in 1997 at the age of 58, they honored her with the Circle dedication. She was also apparently crucial in the preservation of the bungalows in the Linda Ronstadt Park we saw at the very start of this tour. Good for Marilyn. She wasn't, however, the first Mrs. Glasband to live here. Eugene and his wife Sterling Sturtevant Glasband moved to this house in the early 1950s after only having been married a few years. Eugene worked, I think, for the state at one point. Then he had a window cleaning business. I can't remember, but Sterling, get this, she was one of the first female animators over at Walt Disney Studios, who at one point was even listed as one of their top 10 cartoon designers. Well, she eventually left Disney and took over for a fledgling character named Mr. Magoo over at a rival studio. She revamped him, and thanks to her, in 1953, the Mr. Magoo cartoon series took off, and he became a superstar. She also art-directed the animated film When Magoo Flew, which won the Oscar for Best Animated Short in 1955. And while Sterling was off creating iconic cartoons, her husband Eugene made the news for getting his appendix taken out. Apparently, a couple hours after his morning surgery, his twin brother began experiencing excruciating pain and had his removed that evening, and the two ended up sharing a hospital room, which the newspapers thought was cute. And a few years later, in 1959, Eugene and Sterling's little son Sam made the news for making the rounds with his classmates, collecting money for needy refugees overseas. And in addition to him, the couple also had a daughter named Amy who tragically never even got to know her mom. She was an infant when Sterling died from pancreatic cancer in 1962. Ugh, the poor cartoon designer was only 39, and she had just started working for Charles Schulz, who of course created Peanuts. Well, 3 years later, in 1965, Eugene remarried to Marilyn. And together, they had a son named Danny, born in 1970. Now, the rest of this story, it borders on gossip. Well, it is gossip. Like I said, there's very little out there on Marilyn, so a very basic search led me to a divorce petition that she filed against Eugene in 1993, and also, why am I whispering? She died almost 30 years ago, Justin, relax. I keep forgetting how long ago the 90s were. I'm acting like their neighbors still out here going, shh, the kids don't know about the divorce. What are you doing? I actually don't think the divorce happened, though, because they were both still mentioned as being married to one another in each other's obituaries, which, and this is so sad, Eugene, he died in 1995. Then the following year, their 25-year-old son Danny died. His obituary never stated the cause of death, nor did Marilyn's, whose came the following year in 1997. Gosh, the mid-90s were pretty terrible to the Glasband family. But Sam and Amy, they're both still alive. Shortly before the Glasbands moved in, most of the neighborhood gossip of the 1940s was focused on Mrs. Anna Biggs. And if you saw her out and about around her house here on the left, well, it was pretty rare, seeing as she usually slept her days away. See, her nights, they were just getting going around 11 or midnight when she transformed into Louise Miller, torch singer and operator of the Follies Theater on South Main Street in downtown LA, which she co-ran with her husband Robert Biggs. It's been demolished, but it was one of the theaters to specialize in the world of burlesque, starting way back in 1919. And this, what an interesting house this is, built in 1936 and decorated like something you would see in the mountains. Well, technically, I guess we are in the mountains, but when Mrs. Biggs, as Louise Miller, started appearing in 1940, the theater was breaking records in ticket sales and continued to do so well into the mid-40s. That would have been so fun to go to one of those burlesque shows. They had comedy, they had naughty temptresses, risque dancers, gorgeous ladies, bouncing bombshells. Honestly, it was all glamorous fun, pretty tame stuff now, but that world had yet to see full-on strippers and pole dancers. This was, for the most part, a night where you could have semi-innocent fun without having to worry too much about any sort of trouble. Until 1948, when a young vice squad officer, a complete stick in the mud, named Cletus O. Smith, went to the Follies one night in December and was, just outraged when he saw Lili St. remove her black veil, her net skirt, and her black beaded jacket, only to reveal her bare hands covering her bare you-know-whats, as he probably referred to them. And if you don't know, Lili St. Cyr was a legendary dancer, as big as Gypsy Rose Lee. However, she was never immortalized with a musical. Lili was considered to be one of the classier striptease dancers, never revealing too much. She was very outspoken, and she defended what she did, although she wasn't exactly proud of it either. She said she did it because waiting tables was much more difficult, and she couldn't wait to retire so that she didn't have to dance anymore.
Tonight we go after the story of a beautiful blonde who has made a fortune by taking off her clothes in public. You see her behind me. She's the leading stripteaser in America, Lili St. Cyr, whose uninhibited dancing is matched only by her uninhibited attitudes toward marriage, alimony, religion, and politics. And now to our story. Lili St. Cyr, a tall, sensuous blonde, is the most famous stripteaser in America, the leader in a profession that has become something of an institution in show business. She makes more than $100,000 a year for shedding filmy garments, taking baths, and dancing provocatively on stage. Let's try to find out what attitudes, what ambitions, what needs and emotions make a striptease artist. Tell me this. I know that you have been arrested, I gather, from time to time for indecent exposure, maybe 3 or 4 times. What do you think of the public officials, the civic and religious groups, the private citizens who charge that the striptease is lewd and immoral, that its sole function is to arouse lust in an audience?
Naturally, I don't believe that I'm arousing any lust in the audience. I never do anything that I believe is wrong.
Well, yesterday you told our reporter, you said, if I do demoralize an audience, as some people might say, then I'm glad I do it. You said people need some loosening up. Most of the people in this country are too hypocritical. Underneath, we're all the same, you said. Only too many put on a front of being shocked by certain kinds of behavior. Now, what did you mean by that, Lili?
Well, it's a joke to think I could demoralize anyone with this little act. If one has morals, then they can't be taken away by me or anyone else.
Well, when you say that most people in this country are too hypocritical, underneath we're all the same, except too many put on a front of being shocked by certain kinds of behavior. Why do you think that certain civic groups, certain religious groups, and certain private citizens make these representations against you and the kind of work that you do?
For commercial reasons.
For commercial reasons? What do you mean?
Well, if one is the head of a group and gets paid for it, they have to prove that they're earning their money some way, and I'm certainly an easy victim to pick on.
And you think that there's just pure hypocrisy involved, and they're just trying to make a dollar by going after you?
Certainly, otherwise they would go after things that are of more importance, but more difficult.
Like, for instance?
Well, we have many crimes that should be taken care of.
When you quit, do you intend to raise a family?
No.
You're very definite about that. Why?
I feel the world is overpopulated as it is. I have no obligation to contribute any more babies.
So many psychologists, I guess every psychologist since Freud has said that childbearing is as important and fulfilling to a normal woman as love and marriage. You don't feel the least bit unfulfilled or incomplete without a child of your own.
No, I don't. If I did, I would try to adopt a child who needs a good home.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that most women do want children?
There are many reasons. Quite often, women who have no other interest certainly need children.
Briefly, what are your religious beliefs?
I have my own religion.
Hmm?
I believe in doing the right thing, never hurting anyone, helping anyone if I possibly can.
What about politics? Do you have any interest in that at all?
No.
Are you afraid of growing old, of growing ugly?
Yes.
That does worry you?
Yes.
Lili, you don't respect marriage, particularly as such, legal marriage. You have no particular interest in children, politics, formal religion as we know it. What kind of a world do you think this would be if everyone were like you?
Well, since I don't hurt anyone, and since I have my own little kind of religion, then no one would ever hurt anyone else.
Not only was Lili arrested, but so was Anna. They both had to go before a judge where this Vice Squad dork said that Lili also reclined on a table surrounded by pillows and that she bumped and that she grinded. Also, good news for the prosecutor. They had a brief 16-millimeter clip of this supposed lewd dance and showed it to a very crowded courtroom. I love it. Can't you see all these judges and lawyers and clerks racing to the courtroom to watch this horrific display of vulgarity? You know, to see for themselves. Well, the judge, he gave Lili a choice. A fine of $350 or going to jail. And she was like, please give me the fine. It's a third of my weekly salary. Anna, though, wasn't given the option. She was sent to jail for 30 days and fined $500 because it was in her establishment that Lili St. had put on this lewd and indecent show. Well, the following year, 1949, 41-year-old Anna Biggs filed for divorce from Robert after 6 years of marriage, and things got pretty ugly, too. She claimed that Robert and his dad got her into a horrible deal with the building and that she was losing the business, losing the license. Also, Richard had been overheard saying that he was trying to get this house, too, but she said no way, and not only sued for divorce, but she sued Richard's dad because of the whole business deal gone wrong. And surprisingly, Anna had a great day in court this time around. She was granted the divorce, she was granted this house, and because the judge saw the scam in this awful deal, she was also awarded $16,000 plus $125 a week until the sum of $24,000 was paid off. And after that, the Biggs men were ordered to pay her $100 a week for the rest of her life or until she remarried. What a score. I mean, Anna, don't even take a guy's phone number, you know? But in true mysterious burlesque fashion, I have no idea what became of the ex Mrs. Anna Biggs, aka Louise Miller. No clue. It's like her name doesn't exist anywhere after the divorce deal. Could not find a thing. Would love to know just how many checks she collected from those fellas. And as for Lili St. Cyr, well, she ended up retiring and lived a very, very mysterious and reclusive life here in Hollywood until she passed away at the age of 80 in 1999. This very long and winding stone wall separates Hollywood Heights from a neighborhood called Outpost Estates. It's really a reinforcement wall. There's nothing on the other side but earth and dirt. The properties all sit ground level, which is at the very top of this wall. And on the left is a group of apartments, condos, all built in 1992. And wow, do they have amazing views from up here. As we descend Sycamore, you'll get an idea of just how high up in the hills we actually are. January 26, 1945 was a dark and ominous day for a few of the residents down here. Mrs. Willa Metz of 2006 told police that a woman knocked on her door wearing nothing but shoes and an overcoat. The woman, who Mrs. Metz assumed was around 25, was begging to use a telephone, insisting that she had just been raped by 4 men. Well, Mrs. Metz didn't have a telephone, so this mystery woman ran next door to 2000, home of Mrs. Annie Oland, who did. She reported that this woman called a Dr. Henry, and that this woman claimed that the 4 men had held her at gunpoint until she submitted to them. Well, this Dr. Henry character showed up almost immediately and whisked the woman away, all before the cops arrived. And when they showed up, there was no sign of this woman anywhere. But they did find ladies' underwear and a black purse underneath a tree across the street here. But they were never able to find this woman or a Dr. Henry. Like Anna Biggs, she disappeared into the world of who knows what. We're going to come back up here and see all of this place, Yamashiro, in a little bit, but first we're going to complete the Sycamore Avenue loop. Well, technically, for some reason, there's this small stretch of it right here called Fitch Drive, I'm not sure why. Only one place uses its address, but we're going to walk all the way around the circle so that you'll get a better idea of just how Yamashiro sits high up on this hill that we're on. And here, just under the Yamashiro property, is that only Fitch Drive address. It's an apartment building, and I'm not sure why it uses a separate address because it's part of the Yamashiro property. It's very mysterious. There's not even a basic real estate listing for it. But when Yamashiro was declared an LA Historical Cultural Monument in 2008, this address was included along with Yamashiro's Sycamore address. So I'm assuming it was part of the original concept, but there's honestly just not much out there on it. And everything on the other side, that's all part of Outpost Estates. This is another one of those houses that has a back entrance on one street, but has a front address on another street. And I think, and this is just a guess, but I think that this apartment building maybe houses employees of Yamashiro, or at least maybe the property caretakers. Not sure. It's just another one of those Sycamore Avenue mysteries, like our friend Anna Biggs or the lady in the overcoat. Actually, you know what's kind of interesting about this, now that I'm thinking about this? In 1945, when that poor woman claimed that those men raped her, Yamashiro wasn't even a restaurant yet. It was a privately owned house that year, and it was going through, well, I'm going to give you the whole history of it when we get up there, but the house was in a terrible phase where it was all boarded up and hidden because of World War II. Due to its Japanese aesthetic. It was not the Yamashiro that it is today, and I bet you anything that that woman's assault took place somewhere around this property. Which would make sense as to why she ended up across from Yamashiro's driveway at those apartments. Yes, that's it. I'm trying to solve crimes from the 1940s here. Who do we call? Who do we tell? So, all right, we're on the westernmost border of Hollywood Heights. Nothing to our right is part of this neighborhood. It's all Hollywood. There are a few houses, but it's mostly just apartment buildings. And the gated driveway on the other side, that leads up to the parking area where Yamashiro valets your car. It's so high up there, you can't even see it. And it's pretty funny because although this whole walk has been downhill, we're still pretty high up ourselves. We're descending towards Franklin Avenue, which is the next main street, and that is considered part of the flats of Hollywood. And those of you who have been with me from the very start of this neighborhood tour might be able to guess what that yellow building is peeking out at us down there. It is the back of the Magic Castle Hotel, where Kim Stanley stayed while making the Jessica Lange movie Frances. I would have never expected anyone to have guessed that, unless you're very familiar with Hollywood. But that's Franklin down there. Busy Franklin Avenue. And this, my dear friends, is the end of Fitch Drive and the return of Sycamore Avenue. The second, well, probably the first and main entrance to Sycamore. There's no signage to Yamashiro anywhere around the Marilyn Glasband circle, so I think that they would prefer you enter from here. Now let's talk about two brothers from New Zealand. Tim was born on June 25th, 1952, and younger brother Neil was born on May 27th, 1958. Both little boys grew up around the piano, participating in family sing-alongs. Music was such a part of their lives that these brothers took their talents and followed their dreams. Tim, he became the lead singer-songwriter of a group he co-founded called Split Enz in 1972 when he was 20. Meanwhile, little brother Neil was off in a band of his own until 1977 when the Split Enz co-founder left and Tim needed a replacement. So he invited his little bro Neil to join the fun, and for the next 7 years, they were the Split Enz. The band in its total 12-year run was pretty successful. I mean, today they're a favorite amongst new wave and punk fans, but for the most part, their success just didn't hit America as much as it did New Zealand and Australia and the UK. I mean, they did very well. Some of you are probably thinking, Justin, come on, we know who the Split Enz are, but I know there were definitely people going, no clue who you're talking about. Well, soon we'll all be on the same page because after Split Enz ended in 1984, little brother Neil went off with one of its other members, and together they formed a new group called the Mullanes, formed in Australia. And they were good enough to land a contract with Capitol Records out here in Hollywood, so the boys packed up, left Australia, and moved into an apartment here on Sycamore, right behind the Magic Castle, which we'll see later. Now, the Mullanes, they were a trio, and they began recording their debut album at nearby Capitol Records, as well as over at Sunset Sound, all while they were living right here in this house. But Capitol did not like the band's name, the Mullanes, so they ordered a change. They really believed they had a hit album waiting to be released and that they needed a great name. Well, the boys had been griping to Capitol for cramming the whole band into this small place, so it was quite fitting when everyone agreed that the band and their debut album would simply be called Crowded House. In August of 1986, Crowded House released their very first album. The first single didn't drum up much noise, but their second one would end up being the band's biggest commercial hit, reaching #1 all around the world, and it would cement the group's permanent place in pop culture history with a song that everyone out there has heard. If you tell me you haven't heard this song, you are lying, because it is still being played on some radio somewhere in the world on any given day.
There is freedom within, there is freedom without. Try to catch the deluge in a paper cup. There's a battle ahead, many battles are lost, but you'll never see the end of the road while you're traveling with me. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. We know that they won't win.
The album was a hit, and they had another success with the follow-up single, Something So Strong, and the MTV Music Awards named Crowded House their Best New Artist. They went on to release one more album before Neil asked his big brother Tim to do the band joining this time. He joined, and Crowded House officially stayed together until 1996. There have been some reunions and even a few albums since then with various members, but both brothers are still rocking out today. In fact, Neil Finn joined my personal favorite band, Fleetwood Mac, in 2018 after Lindsey Buckingham left the group yet again. He toured with them for a couple of years, and both Tim and Neil, they have kids who have inherited the musical talent gene. Tim's son Harper Finn is set to release his first full album in October of 2025.
Now I'm towing my car, there's a hole in the roof. My possessions are causing me suspicion, but there's no proof. In the paper today, tales of war and waste, but you turn right over to the TV page. Hey now, build a wall between us. We know they won't win.
Keep this shiny gold roof in mind when we get up to Yamashiro. I'm sure you've put it together, but across the street from our crowded house is indeed part of Yamashiro. Like I said, it was a house when it was first built, and it took about 4 years to complete, from 1911 to 1914. That's how old this structure is. And when I first showed you Yamashiro at the top of Fitch Drive, that was the driveway, but this was the front. Yeah, there are 300 steps leading up to the front door. It's closed off now, has been for years, but this is where you started your trek up to Yamashiro back in the day when most people really didn't have modes of transportation. And because of that, this was built as a place to rest and catch your breath. There's a few resting spots that you'll see, actually. Could you imagine? Honey, I left my keys in the resting shelter. Can you be a lamb and fetch them? Yeah, which one? The second one. And I'm sure there was also probably a security guard at some point. I can't remember. I never went this way. Gloria Swanson always made sure we were dropped off at the top. Never climbed a thing.
Now I'm walking again to the beat of a drum, and I'm counting the steps to the door of your heart. Only shadows ahead, barely clearing the roof. Get to know the feeling of liberation and release. Hey now, don't dream it's over. Hey now, when the world comes in, they come to build a wall between us. We know they won't win.
Oh, this is a perfect example of a Hollywood Hills home that you might pass by and think, oh, what a cute little shack. No, it's a 3,700 square foot masterpiece built in 1921 with a listing price well over $3 million. And for those of you who like to look up the interiors of these homes, do not miss 1922 Sycamore 90068. It's a tad dark, but oh, near perfect. It's a vibe I could happily live in. We're on the last stretch of the Sycamore Loop here on the east end of the Yamashiro property, where two former apartment buildings sit. The whiter one back there is the Hollywood Hills Hotel, a boutique little place where you can enjoy a quiet stay. And this one in the front of it, I'm not entirely sure if it's just apartments or if it's part of the hotel. I think it might be a mix of both. I'm not sure. but I do know that the buildings were added to the property in the early 50s. And wait until I tell you all about what used to sit here before they were converted into apartments. Also, I can't seem to pinpoint an exact room number, but the biggest claim to fame for these apartments is that Richard Pryor supposedly lived in one of them. There were a few locations, though, on the property where he could have lived, so I'm not exactly sure, but it does seem to be a part of Yamashiro's history that they themselves talk about. Actually, I don't know too much about Richard Pryor's life, but I imagine this would have been sometime around the 70s. They've definitely been upgraded and renovated since then, and they seem so high up from here, but wait until we're level with the main house. You can barely even see the buildings from there. It's like they don't even exist. It's so funny how many birds are around here, because if you lived here in 1958, well, you had better watch out for an arsonist blue jay. Oh yeah, according to the Citizen News, a blue jay picked up a box of matches from the balcony here at 1900 and somehow struck one, dropping it near a pile of dry leaves. The old "my bird did it" routine. The article was crazy. There was no mention of any witnesses. They blamed the bird, and they said the person responsible was an unthinking smoker. What are they supposed to be thinking about? Oh, better not leave my matches here in case a bird flies by and strikes one. Well, luckily it was put out quickly and nothing was damaged. But yeah, watch out for those fire-starting birds. We have reports of a person roaming the streets of Hollywood Heights, filming people's houses. Please keep an eye out. White guy, strange haircut, talking endlessly to himself. Could be 30, could be 50, hard to tell. He's definitely been out in the heat way too long, though. And there we go, peekaboo. Yamashiro giving us a slight glimpse into her radiant beauty. Well, we did it. We have completed Sycamore Avenue. So proud of us. Now, the only thing left to do up here is, well, visit Yamashiro, the crown jewel of this marvelous, marvelous hilltop.